In the blistering heat of the Nevada desert, where winds sweep away every trace, Burning Man has always called itself a city that exists for only 1 week. But this year, amid the flames of its iconic ritual, darkness took center stage. A sudden death turned a festival of freedom, art, and imagination into the scene of a haunting investigation. The victim was Vadim Kruglov, 37 years old, a Russian-born artist living in Washington state. To his friends, he was a true hero of Burning Man, someone who gave himself fully to art and community. Yet, on the night of August 30th, as tens of thousands cheered around a sea of fire, Vadim was found lifeless, lying in a pool of blood. Shock spread fast. An event celebrated for creativity and liberation was now marked by violence. The timing was chilling. At the very moment the towering wooden effigy collapsed in flames, thousands of eyes gazed at the sky while, in a corner of the desert city, a man's life was cut short. When the medical examiner stepped in, the injuries to his face were so severe that it took days to confirm his identity, finally verified only through fingerprints. And then came the cruelest twist. Black Rock City, a temporary metropolis, vanished overnight, erasing most of the crime scene and leaving investigators with more questions than answers. With nearly 80,000 attendees, most of them masked, painted, or disguised, tracking down witnesses was almost impossible. Cell service was faint, the community dispersed in hours, and the desert never keeps secrets for long. Yet somewhere, hidden among those thousands of eyes, someone saw what truly happened to Vadim Kruglov. If you want to keep uncovering the world's most unsettling courtroom dramas and unsolved mysteries, subscribe to Echoes of the Court, where every verdict whispers a deeper truth. For detectives, the desert was both ally and enemy. The isolation of Black Rock made it easier to contain the crime scene, but only for a moment. By dawn, the city of Burning Man had already begun to disappear. Camps were dismantled, art installations torn down, and 80,000 participants scattered back across the United States and beyond. What should have been a stable crime scene dissolved like smoke, leaving investigators clinging to fragments. The Pershing County Sheriff's Office confirmed the death as a homicide, but the path forward was tangled. A weapon may have been recovered near the body, but no official confirmation has been released. Investigators were instead forced to confront the brutal reality. Most of the potential witnesses were already gone, their faces hidden under masks, their costumes impossible to trace. Even with digital footprints, cell signals at Burning Man were notoriously unreliable, leaving the trail faint and broken. Forensic experts added to the uncertainty. In the desert, evidence rarely survives untouched. Blood, soil, and dust contaminate each other. The victim's wounds were so severe to his face that identifying him required fingerprints, and even DNA testing, while promising, takes weeks, sometimes months, to yield usable answers. In the meantime, the public demands justice, while detectives remain stuck in the gap between questions and proof. What makes this case even more complex is the silence of the desert itself. Unlike a city block lined with cameras, Black Rock has no surveillance, no streetlights to capture shadows, no microphones to record screams, only word of mouth if anyone dares to speak. For now, the only certainty is uncertainty. In the first days after the discovery, investigators clung to the few tangible leads they had. A mobile phone was reported near the body, an object that might hold the final messages, the last calls, the digital fingerprints of a killer. But unlocking its secrets is a slow, methodical process. Weeks could pass before data yields clarity, and even then, it may raise more questions than answers. The knife allegedly found at the scene offered another possibility. If it truly was the murder weapon, it might still carry traces of DNA, sweat, or prints. Yet the desert does not preserve, it destroys. Heat, dust, and careless handling can erase the story a blade once told. Without a perfect chain of custody, any evidence risks collapse in court. Meanwhile, law enforcement issued a plea to the public. Burning Man's organizers joined, asking anyone with the smallest detail an overheard argument, a shadow in the crowd, a figure acting strangely to come forward. To encourage cooperation, they opened a secret witness program, allowing people to provide tips anonymously. The hope was that in a city of masks, someone's conscience might finally unmask the truth. But with each passing day, the trail cooled. The spectacle of Burning Man had already moved on, swallowed by the next headline, the next distraction. For Vadim's friends and family, however, time did not dull the wound. To them, he was not just a casualty in the desert. He was a son, a brother, an artist whose light had been extinguished in silence. The question grew sharper. Was Vadim targeted, or was his death a crime of opportunity in the chaos of the festival's climax? As the investigation stalled, one voice broke through the silence. Igor Dmitrievich Kruglov, Vadim's father. From thousands of miles away, he spoke with a mixture of grief and defiance. To those who whispered speculation, he gave no room for doubt. "My son was an honest man," he insisted, rejecting rumors that attempted to stain Vadim's character. In his words, Vadim was not a nameless casualty of a festival gone wrong. He was a man of integrity whose death demanded justice. His statement struck a chord. While law enforcement was careful, speaking in the language of procedure, Igor's words were raw, human, undeniable. They reminded the public that behind the headlines and theories was a real life cut short. It was the emotional clarity investigators themselves could not provide, but which kept the case alive in the hearts of many. At the same time, Vadim's community moved quickly to support his family. Friends organized a fundraising campaign to bring his body back to Omsk, the Russian city where he was born. Within days, donations poured in, crossing tens of thousands of dollars. Each contribution was more than money. It was a statement that Vadim mattered, that his memory could not be left in the desert dust. Still, the father's plea carried an unspoken weight. For every day without answers, suspicion deepened. Was this the work of a stranger? A fleeting moment of violence? Or did someone at Burning Man know Vadim, know his routines, his vulnerabilities? Behind the grief of a parent was a quiet demand. Find the truth, no matter how long it takes. When the official record stalls, speculation thrives. In the days following Vadim's death, online forums lit up with theories. Some claimed it was a random act, an unfortunate clash fueled by chaos, alcohol, or drugs. Others whispered of darker motives, of conflicts that may have followed him into the desert. But speculation is not evidence. And for investigators, every rumor became another distraction from the fragile truth. Forensic experts warned against drawing quick conclusions. The pool of blood suggested a wound to the head or chest, a sudden and violent strike. But without witnesses, without surveillance, even reconstructing the moment of attack was guesswork. What investigators had was not a story, but fragments of one blood in the dust, a weapon that might speak, and a phone waiting to be unlocked. Everything else was noise. The desert, however, has a way of swallowing facts. Unlike an urban homicide, where cameras and timelines can narrow the field, Burning Man offered nothing but shifting sands and vanishing crowds. For every question, when did it happen? Who stood nearby? Who saw Vadim last? There was only silence. Still, one detail haunted investigators. Vadim's body was discovered during the most spectacular moment of the festival, the burning of the giant effigy, when tens of thousands stood together in awe. How could such an act of violence unfold in the middle of the crowd, yet remain unseen? Was it hidden in plain sight, or was the chaos itself the perfect cover? As September stretched on, the investigation remained unresolved. The Pershing County Sheriff's Office admitted they had no suspect in custody, no arrest on the horizon. What they had instead was a widening gap between public expectation and investigative reality. Each unanswered question pressed harder on the fragile trust between the authorities and the community that wanted justice. For Vadim's loved ones, the waiting was its own form of torment. His friends remembered him as an artist, a dreamer who believed in the spirit of Burning Man. To them, it was unthinkable that his final moments had been marked not by art or freedom, but by violence. His family, thousands of miles away, clung to the hope that truth would rise above rumor, that justice would find its way through the desert's silence. Meanwhile, Burning Man itself carried on. Organizers expressed sorrow and pledged cooperation with investigators. Yet for many, the contrast was too stark. While the community celebrated its return home, a man's life had ended in the shadows of their flames. On social media, the debate grew: was Burning Man prepared to face the darker realities of life and death within its borders? Or was this tragedy destined to fade like the city itself? At the heart of the case lies a haunting dilemma. The desert gave no answers, the crowd offered no witnesses, and the investigation teeters between progress and oblivion. If justice is not found soon, the fear is clear. Vadim Kruglov's name could become just another whisper carried away by the Nevada wind. Every unsolved crime leaves a scar, not only on those who love the victim, but also on the place where it happened. For Burning Man, the death of Vadim Kruglov has become a shadow over its bright flames. What was meant to be a celebration of creation and community is now remembered for a silence more deafening than music, for a body found in blood beneath the desert sky. His father's words continue to echo. Vadim was an honest man, a man who deserved life, not death in anonymity. The donations that brought his body back to Omsk were not just acts of kindness, but acts of defiance against forgetting. They were a collective vow that his story would not vanish like the city of Black Rock itself. But for investigators, the vow is unfinished. A weapon may still speak, a phone may still reveal its secrets, and somewhere in the shifting dust of memory, a witness may still find the courage to step forward. The question is not only who killed Vadim Kruglov, but whether justice can survive in a place built on impermanence. For now, all that remains is a haunting paradox. A man lost in the middle of a crowd, a crime committed in plain sight, and a desert that refuses to give up its secrets. This is Echoes of the Court, where every verdict, every silence, whispers a deeper truth.